Hello, I'm Dr. Danita Hedgeman with the Moments on Waiting talk show. This show is about encouraging people on being more prepared, productive, and wise during their waiting period. Each week, we will focus on different topics from my book, While I Wait, that will give you solutions during the waiting journey. So today's topic is, what are you doing while you wait? Now that is a very good question. So what are you doing while you wait? Are you stuck? Are you procrastinating and hanging around negative people? Or are you writing a vision and making it plain, hanging around positive people? If you're looking for a job, are you working on your resumes, your dress and interviewing skills? Or if you are waiting on a mate, are you learning on how to cook and work on your character? Well, these are some things that we would really like to know. So today's guest will share with us some waiting tips. So let's welcome to the show the Dr. Henrietta Lindsay from Lighthouse Chapel International. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Dr. Danita. I'm really privileged to be here.
I am so excited about you being here. I have been to your church and it's been an awesome experience coming to some of your events and just seeing that it's a close-knit family and just the high moral standards that you teach your young people. That is just so awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, so now tell us a little bit more about your ministry.
Okay, our church is called the Lighthouse Chapel International, and it's a church that was founded originally in Ghana, West Africa. So our founder is Bishop Dag Heward-Mills, and he started out as a doctor actually. He's a medical doctor by profession, and while he was in medical school, he started the church, which has grown today to about 1,800 branches worldwide. Now, the unique thing about our church is that many of our pastors are trained to still hold a secular job and do the work of the ministry. We call it lay ministry. And so my husband and I, while we were in the medical school, we met in the medical school. We began a process of informal pastoral training. That is to say, we didn't put school on hold to go to the seminary or anything, but we had training sessions for a certain number of years, and then we were appointed as pastors. Soon after that, he came to the United States to do a residency in internal medicine.
Okay.
And so we moved together. And because our training teaches us to start churches wherever we go, that's what we did. We started our first church in the United States in the Bronx, New York. That's where we lived. And we lived there for about 6 years. He continued to do his fellowship in gastroenterology. And then we moved to Memphis to take a job, which he got here. And naturally, we started another church, which has grown. It started in our living room, and it has grown slowly, but now we seat about 120 people on average every Sunday, and we're still growing, and we're grateful to God for the opportunity to work for Him.
And now I remember you all being on Elvis Presley.
Yes.
So now you're where?
Well, now we are at 5796 Shelby Oaks Drive, the first suite, and we have moved around a bit from our living room in Lakeland to Holiday Inn to Elvis Presley, and now God has brought us into a big place, and we still feel that there's room to grow and increase, but it's 5796 Shelby Oaks Drive in Bartlett, and we meet on Sundays at 9 and 10:45.
Oh. So what were you doing while you were waiting on that process to happen?
Well, waiting on the church to happen or personally. Either way, I think while we were waiting for the church to happen, there's never really been a downtime, so to speak, as in doing nothing really. There was always something to do. Always we had opportunities to assist other pastors in building their churches. When we came at first, there was a church in Manhattan, New York. And so before we started in the Bronx, we were members of Manhattan, helping with the choir and other things, and then we were sent to the Bronx to start our own ministry. And then it was like moving from one to the other. So when we came to Memphis, we just kind of jumped in. Our training teaches us that we should kind of have a period of fasting, waiting upon the Lord before we actually start the church. So I recall that we moved here. We drove from New Jersey, a 24-hour drive, I think. And that was on the 20th of August in 2006. And on the 21st, which was the next day, after we just recovering, my husband said, the fast starts today. I said, are you sure? He said, we start today. So that day we started our 3-week fast, and then soon after that we started having meetings in our home without furniture. We just started, and just with God's grace and help, we have grown little by little. So that's how it's been.
Now, to help the viewers understand about a waiting period, so when you moved from Memphis, well, really from New York to Memphis, how long was that? Like maybe just 2 years of preparing to come to Memphis and starting your ministry here?
Well, moving from New York to Memphis was not such a long process, actually.
Okay.
So we were still working in the church in the Bronx whilst looking for an opportunity to come to Memphis, interviewing, looking for an apartment. So by the time we came to Memphis, the waiting and preparing was already done, so to speak. We never really stopped doing anything to wait. We just came and then we started. So I would say probably the waiting would be waiting for things to grow into what we would call a church, you know, because most people do not associate a church with an apartment building or someone's living room. In fact, it was so funny because we would dress up all the kids. I have 3 sons. And so we'd dress them up in all their cute outfits and everything and walk from the bedroom to the living room for the service. And they would like, so anyway, one day one of my sons said, when are we going to go to a real church? And we said, this is the real church. But over time, now it's become what everybody would associate with a real church. But we never really gave up on what we had. We were just a family, but it's a church. And God has been faithful. We could have given up easily because it took a while for people to be committed, even believe in us. We're total strangers. So we have an accent. Everybody was like, why did you move from New York again? And so on. But with time, we have become so much a part of this city. I can't see myself living anywhere else. Church members are practically family. But it has been about 8 years. And God has been faithful.
And you wear many hats. So you're over the choir, you preach. What else do you do?
Yes. Well, I do a lot of things here in Memphis. I would say I just organize and supervise a lot of things, make sure things run smoothly, and make it possible for my husband to operate fully. But I do preach in the first service. So the first service is my service. So at 9 o'clock on Sundays, that's when I preach, and then I get other things ready for the second service, which used to be the main service. The first service is a recent addition. But before that, while we were in New York, I was an itinerant preacher. So I came here with a license. I could have practiced as a doctor, but I had decided to give it all to the Lord. So I didn't practice at all as a doctor. I was full-time, so to speak, and I was traveling all over the world and all over the country, training leaders in our Lighthouse Church family or denomination, if you like. And I did that for a while, but with young children, the traveling was challenging, so I had to put it on hold for a while and just assist my husband in church. And then I got help for a few years, and so I was able to travel again. and then she got married and moved away. So then I'm back to helping my husband. I believe that there may be other things outside the city for me to do it ministerially. But until that time comes, I'm helping my husband to do the ministry, developing my preaching ministry and my teaching skills, and
Okay.
believing God for the best.
Wow. Well, that is so awesome. So how does your husband balance from being a medical doctor than to being a pastor on Sundays?
Well, most people don't even know that he wears two hats,
Right.
because he does everything with passion. So
Right.
he's a doctor, passionate doctor, and then he's a passionate pastor. But with lay ministry, the main thing is being wise about the use of your time
Yes.
and making sacrifices. You
Right.
can't be part of every social group. You've got to make time to pray and wait on the Lord apart from the time that you work. So it's a lot of sacrifice and wisdom, dedicating time for your family and for the ministry. And he does that very well, very excellently. I believe that's a grace that he has been given.
And he plays instruments also. So
Yes.
I looked over there and saw him playing in the band.
He
So
plays,
he does
he
everything.
plays the bass guitar.
Yes.
In recent times, all three of my sons now,
Mhm.
they were playing the piano. They learned classical piano, but they have evolved into other things. So my oldest son plays the keyboard, my middle son plays the drums, and my youngest plays the bass guitar. So we have kind of a full. So Daddy has been booted out of the music, and he just concentrates on the preaching. In fact, the other day he said they've gotten so good that he feels intimidated. He doesn't think he wants to go back to play the guitar anymore. But that has been a great blessing, having the children also involved in the ministry.
Yes, yes. Now let's shift to really waiting. What does waiting mean?
Well, waiting, I think it means, from the dictionary, kind of being in expectation
Right.
of something.
Right.
And sometimes this passage of time, and there before you get that expectation. So
Mhm.
you have to wait in terms of stop or well, some definitions say you are in a state of repose or
Mhm.
not doing anything. I don't quite agree with that, because repose means you're inactive, you're
Right.
doing nothing while you're
Right.
waiting for that expected thing to happen,
Mhm.
which I don't believe is probably the best way to wait. I read your book,
Mhm.
and I find that there are a lot of things that I read which really resonate with me about waiting. That it's not enough to just sit down and
Mhm.
wait. You need to be actively doing something
Right.
while waiting on your change to come. So that's waiting. Well, the traditional understanding is you're doing nothing.
Mhm.
But there is another part of waiting, which means you're expecting something, but you're not standing still doing nothing, but
Right.
you're doing something while you wait.
Right. So there are two types of waiting:
Yes.
active waiting and
And
passive.
waiting.
Right, and people have to understand that. So a lot of times when people are saying, well, God told me to be still, but does he mean for you just to be still and not do anything? Or are you actively preparing for what you're asking him
Exactly,
for?
yeah.
So what does God say about waiting?
Well, there are a lot of things that God says about waiting. One of the things that I was reading just this morning from 2 Peter is that God is not slack concerning his promises, as many of us count slackness.
Mm-hmm.
And this was written to a church that was kind of getting tired of waiting for Jesus to come,
Mhm.
because way back then they were expecting Jesus to come any day now. It's been about 2,000 years, and he's not here yet. And so I think people were getting tired of waiting, and then they were like, he's never going to come, and that's one of the things that makes you feel that you're waiting, and nothing is happening.
Right.
But the Bible tells us I mean, I'll give you examples of different situations when people were waiting. Like the people of Israel, Daniel and the Hebrew boys, they were taken into captivity. And there was a prophecy concerning what would happen to the nation of Israel. They would be in captivity for a while and so on. While these people were in captivity, when you read in the Psalms, I believe it's Psalm 27 or so, it says, by the rivers of Babylon, we sat down and we wept when we remembered Zion. And our captors said, sing us one of the songs of Zion. And we responded, how can we sing the Lord's song in a strange land? Now my question to the captors in Babylon is, how not? Why not sing in Babylon? Why not be active in Babylon? Why not do what you used to do? Look at the Temple of Daniel. They got into whatever was happening in Babylon. God opened doors for them to be in politics, to be in ministry. In fact, Daniel was so good at his job that 3 regimes still wanted him to be the prime minister while still waiting for the promise of God to return to Babylon and to return to Jerusalem. And after he had waited for a while, he began to enter into a time of praying because he read from the scriptures that about this time God should be delivering us, but nothing was happening. He went into prayer, and then God began to reveal to him the full plan. Now, what I learned from that is you can wait just by doing nothing, which I don't recommend, and I don't believe the Bible recommends, but you can wait actively, being involved, whether it be ministry, prayer, a job, getting your resume, preparing yourself for whatever God has promised is going to come. But the other thing about that is that while you're waiting, you need to have a certain expectation of what God is going to show you and pray for discernment to know when that time has come. There are a lot of people who are waiting, and they have waited for a long time. They are actively waiting even, but when that right time comes, they miss it because the discernment was not there. And so there needs to be, one needs to pray for discernment, to recognize that moment when the thing you have been waiting for has arrived, and you might even pass it by. For instance, the people of Israel were waiting for their Messiah for a very long time. They knew the prophecies like the back of their hand. They knew where he would come from, but when he arrived, they missed it. They didn't recognize him as their Messiah because they were not looking for a discerning time. They were not discerning to see, because I was reading the Bible and I'm saying to myself, how could they have missed it? The Bible said that he would come in healing, with healing in his wings. There were so many healing miracles following Jesus. How could they have missed it? There were references to the Nazarene, him being a Nazarene, and where he was born. How could they have missed it? A lack of discernment of the time, when the time has arrived.
Okay. All right. Now, why is it so hard for people to wait? Because we were born to wait. I mean, 9 months it takes for a baby to be developed. Then, okay, we're waiting at the mall, shopping centers, the bank line, all these things. And I noticed in the Old Testament, they tell us, okay, Noah had to wait 120 years after, right, God told him to build the ark. Abraham waited, 25 years for the promise. And how many years was it between the Old and New Testament when God was just silent? About 400?
Yeah, a long time, 400 to almost 600.
Right, and then the New Testament is telling us what? To prepare for the second
coming of the Lord.
Exactly, and really preparing our life for heaven. So all our life, we are preparing.
Going to be waiting for something.
But we cannot do it. So tell us quickly a point about how to become patient.
Well, patience really, I believe it's something, a function that comes from humility. See, it's pride that makes us feel that we need to have something and we need to have it now. And sometimes that is what makes us take other steps to get
Right.
what we want, because it's not coming as fast as we hope. So one of the things we need to do is to humble ourselves. The Bible says in James, under the mighty hand of God. When the hand of God is moving, there's not much you can do about it. You can resist it, it's not recommended, but you can resist the hand of God by doing other things, or you can allow God to let you go through the process. So if there's one secret for waiting, that secret will be humility.
Okay.
Humbling yourself.
Okay. Now, because what I want you to share near the end, we always want to give the viewers some points on whatever our topic is. So 3 points I want them to be able to take home with them today. So number 1, a waiting tip is?
Don't just sit down. Be doing
Don't just sit
something
down.
while you wait. So wait actively. Do something. Learn something. A language. How to cook, like you mentioned.
Yes.
Work on your resume. Gain experience. Volunteer in your church, somewhere in a hospital, somewhere else. Be active while you're waiting.
So be active. Number 2.
Number 2, be humble.
Be humble.
While you wait.
Okay.
Understand that things don't always go the way that we want. We are not in charge of our lives. God is. And sometimes God allows things to be delayed to bring out what is in us. If you read the Bible, it says, he talked to the people of Israel and said, I made you humble, letting you walk in the wilderness for 40 years. That was a process he was taking them through to make sure they were ready. So be humble.
Okay, so number 1, be active. Number 2, be humble. And number 3,
Be discerning.
be discerning.
So that when your time arrives, you will know it.
Wow, that is so awesome, because I know that when I one time was laid off and I had a degree and everything for 5 years, and I know biblically 5 means wisdom and means grace. So by the grace of God, I didn't have any benefits, so I didn't get sick. But the wisdom, I started preparing and learning all these different skills. So I was working for a temporary agency, and every time someone would call for me to work, they say, well, do you have a temp who knows? I'll just say PowerPoint. Yes, we just had someone who just finished the training. So I was always preparing while I was waiting on my permanent job to come through.
I read about that.
Yes, yes. And then finally somebody was watching me at the job I am now, and he saw that preparation. He said, wow, you can now help any major find a job because you've about worked in every industry. So I positioned myself during my wilderness period, and it was me. I was the problem. God kept saying, okay, every time you complain, I'm gonna let you go another year.
Round.
And finally I said, thank you, Lord, for my permanent job. Thank you for letting me be a temp. And when I said that, the permanent job came. But I was still ready when it came.
That's right.
And that's what I
were
want.
able to recognize it when it came.
Yes, so a lot of prayer, a lot of fasting, a lot of changing and shifting, and even putting myself around different people, because at first I was around naysayers and jealous people.
That's right.
So then when I decided to move away from that, the doors started to open. Yes. So I just really appreciate you coming out today. You have shared with us, so we now know how to build a ministry and to prepare for that ministry, and then what to do while we're waiting. Do you have any closing remarks?
Well, personally, I would say that even though I'm active, I'm also kind of in a period of waiting.
Okay.
And it may not look that way, but I feel that there is something greater for me in ministry. And I don't know exactly what that is, since God does not always show you the highway. He just leads you with a lamp to your feet. So you just see about 2 or 3 steps ahead, and that's enough. Like you read in Psalm 109, verse 105, 119. So I am still in a period of waiting, and I'm looking forward to God sending me to another place, and every time I sense Him moving me towards something, I just keep going. I don't know where He's taking me, because recently doors have been opening for me to attend evangelistic crusades. Our founder has moved into evangelistic crusades, and he's going all over Africa for now doing evangelism. So he's been inviting me to join the team. Maybe we will start something like that in America, I don't know, but I look at it as a period of preparation for something bigger
Yes.
that God wants to do, and I thank him for every opportunity. So
Wow. Well, I see it because you are a praying woman and you are very obedient. And I think when we are really obedient to God's perfect will instead of permissive will, he does move.
that's true.
Wow. So thank you so very much for coming
Thank
to
you for
the show.
having me.
Oh, you're quite welcome. And again, your ministry is the name of it?
Lighthouse Chapel International.
Okay, located at
5796 Shelby Oaks Drive, Suite number 1
okay.
in Bartlett.
Okay, Bartlett, Tennessee.
That's right.
Wow. Well, thank you so very much for tuning in to Moments on Waiting. I'm Dr. Danita Hedgeman, and I will see you on next week.